Which one do you think is reasonable? All of these think tanks out there, most of them just produce papers that nobody reads. They're so caught in the trap of right-left Republican Democrat politics that nobody's thinking out of the box. Nobody's running any scenario that's based on any real idea that means anything anymore, except for a few smart people, like the Center for American Progress and the people behind the global warming scam. By the way, Center for American Progress, that's the pet project for the uber-wealthy progressive George Soros. Yeah. They've played the scenarios out, and they know how to make you buy it. That's what fiction authors do. Except they're not also sitting there in the White House, you know, with power. The Pentagon knows that. After 9/11, the attacks on the Pentagon and on the World Trade Center, they called together a group of fiction writers. Brad Thor, Vince Flynn, I think Nelson DeMille was there. They asked them to join into the war game sessions. This wasn't the first time they had talked to authors. I had Nelson DeMille on my radio program a couple of days ago, and I'm doing an event with him on Sirius and XM with Vince Flynn on this very topic. He had written a story in 2000 about a group of terrorists hijacking planes and gassing everyone. Well, when he was doing his research for that, here in New York City, he got together with a bunch of war gamers here. And here's what he told me they said about 18 months before the 9/11 attacks. Listen to this.
I did a lot of research with the Joint Terrorist Task Force here in the city, and they said to me, I said, what is the next target in the United States? What is the next target in America for terrorists? And they said the World Trade Center, and this was in the year 2000. The World Trade Center had been attacked, if we remember, in February 1993 with a truck bomb in the basement. And they said, look, they missed, and they're going to do it next time. And they said to me, and this is 18 months maybe before it happened, it will be Lear jets full of explosives and gasoline flying into both towers with suicide bombers. What happened, it was not a shock to me when it happened that morning, because I heard it a year and a half before.
These guys talk to great, deep sources. And they're trusted because they know that these fiction writers are not going to reveal their sources. I get it just in television. People talk to me, and they'll talk to me off the record. I've had, you want to talk about frustrating, I've had people tell me stuff and say, I'll tell you because you're the only guy dumb enough to say it out loud. And then they'll sit in a chair with me, and I'll say, well, what do you think about this? Something that we've talked about before we went on the air, and they'll say, oh, I don't know, that sounds kind of crazy. And I want to reach over and choke them to death. The only people that really tell you what they honestly think about what's coming in the way of the future, and they could be wrong, are fiction writers, I think. That's why I love talking to them. They're very well informed, very intelligent, and many times way ahead of the time. 1994, Tom Clancy wrote in this book, Dead of Honor. It's a rogue plot. It takes control of a jet and crashes the jet into the U.S. Capitol. Okay? At the last part of it, the president is addressing the United States Senate, a joint session of Congress, and this is what it says. The entire east face of the building's southern half was smashed to gravel, which shot westward. But the real damage took a second or two more, barely time for the roof to start falling down on the 900 people in the chamber. 100 tons of jet fuel erupted from the shredded fuel tanks. This is in '96. What did they try to do on 9/11? Ayn Rand. You gotta love Ayn Rand. She's great. You talk about Ayn Rand, and what people always say to me, this is what my daughter said. I said, what did you think? I told her to read it. She said, Dad, it just changed my life. It changed the way I think. Yes, that's what Ayn Rand does. Atlas Shrugged. But did you know that she had a really hard time getting a publisher here in America for her book, where is it, The Anthem? Here it is. One publisher rejected it here in the United States. Now, this is, again, at the height of the progressive movement. They said, she doesn't understand socialism. She thinks it's bad. I thought this is really funny because Ayn Rand was born in St. Petersburg. When she was 12, the revolution of 1918 broke out. She was there when it happened. Violence took place all around her. She saw it. She lived through it until her 20s. She saw the brutality of socialism and communism. But the elite here in America said, oh, riffraff, Ayn Rand, she's crazy. Really? Read her books today. You'd think that the media would love a success story like this, but Ayn Rand was mocked in the media, in the universities. Even after achieving success, she was routinely bashed by all of her critics. The media elite. This is what they thought. This is a photo album or a scrapbook here of all the things that were said about Ayn Rand. I wanted to show you. It's really amazing. There's even, I'll show you later on if we have time in the show. Here's a handwritten letter from somebody who said, oh my gosh, look what I found in my kid's school. And it was this. I'll have to read this to you later. But this is what some of the reviews of Ayn Rand said. Not in any literary sense a serious novel. That was the New York Times. Somebody has called it excruciatingly awful. I find it a remarkably silly book. It's certainly a bumptious one. The story is preposterous. Read it today, Whittaker Chambers. We have some more quotes, just like those in the scrapbook. One of them was, it's an instrument of propaganda. This book is a moderate success as a work of art. It's a noble failure. Portsmouth Star. 1,168 pages of soap opera philosophy and propaganda. Savannah News. The strangest book of the year. Rand's novel is disturbing. This is a strange, weird book. Just how strange were the concepts in her books? Well, let's see. The book focuses on how politicians respond to crises, many times created by them, the politician. And they respond by creating new government programs, laws, and regulations. She wrote in The Voice of Reason, one of the methods, here it is, used by statists to destroy capitalism consists in establishing controls that tie a given industry hand and foot, love this, making it unable to solve its problems, then declaring that freedom has failed and stronger controls are necessary. Does Fannie and Freddie come to mind? No, that's not happening today. Oh, that's a strange, crazy book. How many times have you heard capitalism has failed? She also showed how politicians would dress their redistributive legislation in happy-sounding names. Tell me which one is real and which one is Ayn Rand fiction. Here are the things she said. They would name things like the Anti-Greed Act. I love this one, the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act, or the Equalization of Opportunity Act. Which one's real? Which one's from the book? This one's real. But are you telling me you can't hear this or this actually coming out of the mouths of politicians in Washington? No, Ayn Rand had no idea what she was talking about. I've become good friends with several fiction writers. And there's one guy who's becoming real good friends. He's with us tonight. I just love him. He's a smart guy, and he's a guy almost, I don't mean this, Vince, I don't mean this as a slam. He's very much like me. He sees things very similar. He's riddled with ADD, and he struggled most of his life. He came by my office a couple of weeks ago, and he said, look, I'm not leaving or anything, but I just started thinking, we got to get out of here, man. They're going to string us up. And I said, well, me, but why you? You're a good read. He said, Glenn, have you read Term Limits? And I said, no, I haven't, Vince. I said, but my mother-in-law is reading them. And he said, Glenn, I'm getting all kinds of emails on it. And I said, well, she said that this thing reads absolutely like today's headlines. Where's my book, my copy? Here it is. I'm reading it on this iPad because I don't wear my glasses at night when I'm laying in bed, and it gives giant print. It says, I highlighted this last night. It says this: in all his years as a United States congressman, he's talking about a congressman, He had never felt threatened, even after these guys were killed. He thought he was safe. Turnquist didn't tell anyone other than his wife, but he could understand why someone would want to kill them, people in Congress. He had thought about it many times since arriving in Washington 18 years earlier. In short, they weren't good men. They had their petty personal agendas and were more concerned with holding on to their positions of power than doing what was right. Year after year, they said they were benevolent, they were for benevolent change. And then behind closed doors, their committees, they blocked the very reforms they had espoused while they were running for re-election. As I read this, there are so many things in here that are scary and that are possible. That book is Term Limits. We have Vince Flynn here, and we also have Yaron Brook is here, also from the for Ayn Rand. He's going to talk a little bit about Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged. Stay with us all hour. Back in just a second.